Hey everyone, it's Joelle here, and I had a few minutes before I have to go to work, so I figured I would pop on and do a recent reads. These are just some books that I finished in January and February, so wanted to give a recap and also touch base on my If You Got It, Read It Challenge 2020. So I've got my Surface Pro here, and I'm just going to scroll through and just kind of I'm not gonna do like a big review or anything of these books. It's just like a very quick, like, this is what I read, this is what I rated it, and so on. Because I probably can't even remember the names of these characters, to be honest. So, yeah. The very first thing that I read in. Okay, yeah. So, first thing I read was Keira Ball by Stephanie Garber. This I actually listened to on audiobook. So this book is still brand spanking new. I rated this a 4 out of 5. I had quite a few problems with this story. It was very jumpy, it was very quick and rushed and everything. I wanted more magic, less romance, and that it's tough when it comes to YA like fantasy because I feel like they focus so heavily on the love aspect because teenagers and hormones and all of that. But yeah, so I finished this, but that actually completed the book, read a book from your most owned genre, which is YA. So I did complete that for my If You Got It, Read It Challenge 2020. The next one that I finished was on audio, and let me tell you, this was a painful read. Another one that's like a brand spanking new book. This is the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Yeah, I just was so lost the whole time. I hated the ending. Oh, Sophie Hannah wrote on the top of it, this book blew my mind, utterly original and unique. I like Sophie Hannah. I watch her on YouTube and follow her on Instagram. But yeah, basically it's kind of a murder mystery, but you're following one character who keeps waking up in different bodies of people that are guests at this house to try and solve why this girl died. So yeah, not really. I wanted to love it, but not my like time period either, because it was like old-fashioned-y, if that makes any sense. I'm terrible. This didn't cover any of the challenges because I had already started it before I started that challenge, but yeah, so 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton, and I rated that a 3. Yeah, that deserved a 3. Next I got an audiobook of a novella called Last Breath, which is part of the Good Daughter series from Karen Slaughter. If you know me, you know I love Karen Slaughter. The Good Daughter book was one about two sisters who, when they were younger, their mom was murdered in front of them. One of them was brutally tortured and raped. And now they're adults and it's their lives afterwards. So this is following the youngest sister who is a lawyer, and it's just a very quick story about how she thinks she's helping this young girl, and everything like twists and turns, and it's totally not what you think would actually happen. I loved it. I gave it a 5-star. It's Karen Slaughter. I don't think I've disliked much Karen Slaughter, so yeah. Next, this was my first Janet Ivanovich taste, and I did not like it. I didn't realize that, it was the Big Kahuna, and this is like a random number 6 in the Fox and Hare series. Yeah, it was too like cheesy. I wanted a good cop thriller, and it just was so freaking cheesy. It's like a cop and a guy who's kind of helping that used to be a criminal, and then there's like the nerdy other cop, and then like the former Marine dad, and they have to basically figure out what happened to this billionaire guy. And they end up going to Hawaii to go find him, and just there's like all this crazy stuff that ensues, and it's just very like cheesy, corny. not for me. I like my cop dramas to be serious, not stupid. So I rated that a 3 out of 5, and I did listen to that on audio. Next one was a weird surprise to me. Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink. Again, physical copy. Didn't read the physical copy, listened to the audio. This actually completed my randomly choose a book off of your TBR for the If You've Got It, Read It Challenge 2020. I rated this a 4. I had no idea what this book was about. When I saw it at Barnes & Noble one day, I was really drawn to the very bold cover. And then the synopsis basically says, this isn't a road trip story. This isn't a story, it's a road trip. Keisha Taylor lived a quiet life with her wife, Alice, until the day Alice disappeared. So Keisha ends up she becomes a truck driver and decides to travel around the country looking for her wife or signs of her wife. But there is a weird sci-fi twist to it of some creatures that she runs into that are killing people at rest stops and things. So... and I really, really loved the inside cover, but I didn't understand what that meant until after the book. I finished it and I was like, oh yeah. The Thistlemen are the name of the bad guys of it. So, oh, there's Joseph Fink. He's a little hipster. I liked it because I was like, what the F? The whole time that I was like listening to it, I'm like, did I really just hear that happen? I like Keisha's character because she's like basically doing whatever she can to try and find her wife, meanwhile running into all of this weird stuff. But I didn't like the end very much and like the resolution, for lack of a better word, and that's why I gave it a 4. But definitely, he's written some other kind of sci-fi-ish books. I guess I got this in the sci-fi section. I don't know. I randomly found it one day in Barnes & Noble because look at that spine. And I love the name Alice. Alice is my favorite name ever. So if I ever had a daughter, I would probably want to name her Alice, but that's another story. But yeah, so Alice Isn't Dead. And then I quickly was like, all right, let me look at my list of people that I follow on YouTube and Instagram and Goodreads and see what they recommend. I have no idea who recommended this, but I picked up in audio The Need by Helen Phillips because I really wanted like a cool thriller. This was not a cool thriller. Wait a minute, one of my books is missing from here. There was another book that I finished. I freaking hate looking at my Goodreads when it's on the Surface Pro because I feel like it skips stuff. But anyway, The Need. Let's talk about The Need by Helen Phillips. Now, before that, I had listened to a thriller, which seems to be missing from here, but I'll see if I can sort it and find said thriller while I talk about The Need. Basically about a woman who is a paleontologist, I think she is. I don't know. They don't really tell us what her job is, but she digs up prehistoric plants and stuff at an old rest stop. I was on a rest stop kick. And somehow, some way, a duplicate copy of her comes into play and tries to take over her life. Well, would have been a great story and synopsis had there not been so much breastfeeding. The entire book, every single chapter, you could not get through a chapter without talking about breastfeeding and the feeling of milk in your boobs and needing to pump and feed your baby. And I have nothing against breastfeeding, but I don't want it in my sci-fi. So please just don't put that in my books because I can't relate to it and it's annoying. It's just like when I read that thriller book and it talked about breastfeeding so much. Like, why can't you just say, I had to breastfeed? You don't have to go into details and specifics. It's just too much. And and that is why that book got a 3. Not only that, but again with the really bad resolution at the end, and I don't know. I just didn't like this lady and the choices that she made. So, yeah. Keep breastfeeding out of my books, please. Thank you. And then last night, I actually finished Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which was quite the hefty, chunky audiobook. This is actually, it looks like it says Alex Stern #1. So apparently there are multiple Alex Stern books that are going to be out there. I went into this thinking that it was going to be like adult Harry Potter, because that's basically like the blurbs that I read said that. This is nothing like adult Harry Potter. This is about Alex Stern, who can see ghosts and goes to Yale, and apparently there's like a secret society of all this magic and stuff that happens at Yale, and all these different groups that do specific types of magic. And she has basically been drafted to be almost like a bodyguard, security guard. They call her a I forget what they call her, but she's basically got this really hot guy who has recruited her, and she's basically chosen to kind of be a bodyguard for these things, for these groups of magical people. But you know, stuff happens in a murder, and it's her interaction with a police officer who has some kind of knowledge that magic exists, but is still kind of like, I don't believe it. And then like her man boy, and then also balancing like her past of where she was a former drug addict, and she's Hispanic and is from California and poor. So it was too much. It read so much like a YA book, even though it's supposed to be an adult book. The only thing that really made it adult was that there was some graphic sex. And okay, you can get that in YA, but less like intense detail. It was okay. I give it a 3 because it was just okay. So yeah, let me see. Here we go. I found the book that I finished. It's called What She Knew by Gilly McMillan. I really liked this book. I gave it, well, according to the Surface Pro, I didn't give it a rating, but I gave it a 5 in my mind. Basically, it's a story of a woman who is going out for a walk in the park with her little boy, and he disappears, and they can't find him. And basically, it's her dealing with, you know, the press and everything, and how they're portraying her as like being a bad mom. But then also it's the perspective of the cop, and, you know, him telling his story from the future to his therapist. It's just like everything that you go through, to like the sister who's constantly doing research about statistics and things, the ex-husband whose new wife she hates, and everything that they're dealing with it. And I just thought it was really well written. The story, like kidnapping, not really my jam. Like, I don't know if you're sensing a theme, but I don't really want to listen to stories about like moms. I'm not a mom. I don't have anything against moms. I love my mom. I think she would love this book. I've even told her about it, but I just don't really like listening about mom stuff because I can't relate to it. Like, give me like young couples or like singles or something, and I'll probably like it better. Like right now I'm listening to Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, which is really freaking good. I can already tell I'm going to give that a 5. But yeah, I mean, keep the mom stuff at a minimal, but for this mom story, it was actually pretty good, and I really enjoyed it, and totally would recommend it if you're looking for a good cop thriller detective story about kidnapping. And it's also in England. Okay, so that's another thing. I prefer my books to be in England and not in the United States for some reason. Like that breastfeeding one, The Need, it was in the US. And things are done differently in the UK and England, and I much prefer them. Also, I just want to say that before I go, I did start in DNF, a book by Tana French. It was the very first one of the Irish Dublin murder series. I could not get into that at all. Couldn't relate. It was about detective story, and one of the detectives, something happened to him when he was a kid. his friends went missing and stuff, and then like years later they're trying to figure out a similar scenario about what happened to some kids, and then there's like teachers and stuff. Honestly, I don't even remember. I didn't pay attention much to this story because I hated it and I DNF'd it. I think I was just looking for some kind of cop thriller in my audiobook world. So anyways, that's all I completed for January, February recent reads. Let me know if you've read or listened to any of these books. If you want more in-depth reviews of anything, you can let me know too. I'm happy to do that. If you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Instagram. You'll get more of a insight on my daily life. I do a lot of IG stories of me, just my daily life. Do a lot of makeup and beauty stuff on there. So if you're missing that aspect of this channel, that's where you're going to be able to find it, is on Instagram. I am on Twitter. Most of my Twitter talk is about soccer because I'm a soccer fanatic. So yeah, but let me know your progress on if you got it, read it. And if you've read or listened to any of these books, follow me, like and subscribe if you feel like it. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Okay, bye.